Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Coach's Playbook. We're back live, which is different for a while. I'm back in the office, got a nice view of Jefferson behind me. A couple of you guys look like you're out of state. Today, we got a good topic to talk about. Came from Hogue, and it's not fatalistic, but it's can your perfect trade setup fail? And as we were just talking about before it, hell yeah, it can. It could definitely fail. And it often will. I mean, even the best will only work with some percentage that's not too far over 50, 60, maybe 70%. So we want to talk a little bit about that. But first, I hear Mick has a good trader shout out or two for us this morning.
I've got a couple. Big shout out to Parisha Hashemi. She's up about 5,900 trading the NASDAQ today. She obviously was selling it. And big shout out to Vince Cohen too, about 5,300. So couple big days today. Love seeing that.
Nice.
That's awesome.
What happened in the NASDAQ today? Are my life savings still safe? And
no, they're all gone. Completely gone.
Damn. Well, looks like I'm gonna have to do this then. All right. Hogue, since you suggested this, I thought maybe you today could kick us off because you've seen both the agony and the ecstasy of trading. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what to do when your perfect setup fails.
Well, sure. I talk to a lot of traders. I work with a lot of traders, and it seems like even the ones that know better are always looking for that perfect setup, that one thing that they're always going to be able to count on. And it just doesn't exist. And you can go all the way down more granular to like a specific indicator that you like, a specific candlestick pattern that you like, technical pattern that you like. And, it's the markets are always changing. They're ambiguous. We never know the outcome of anything that we do. It's always about, of course, managing risk. But if you feel like you have this setup that's like a go-to, and every time you see it, it's going to work for you, at some point it is not going to work for you because there's situations change, and markets change. There may be a setup that you're counting on that works for a period of time, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, it just doesn't seem to work anymore. And you might think it's you might think it's your setup, but it's always the market. The markets are always changing, always kind of warping the opportunities, and there's never the exact same outcome in anything. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in this environment. And once you do have the right question or the right answers, the market's going to change the questions. So it's very difficult for people to adapt to the changes in the marketplace, which sometimes occur very quickly. So we start to, say, well, this was my main setup and it doesn't work anymore. Doesn't mean it's not going to work again. It just didn't work in that moment. It's, there's nothing that's always going to work.
Yeah, you brought up almost two important things. Nothing is always going to work. You can only play the odds in your favor, but you also talk about how trading adapts. Basically, the trading cycle for any strategy you use is very similar to the business cycle of how companies kind of rise and fall, right? Where something works, it's original, it's innovative, you do it, you grow like crazy, you start getting squeezed out by competition, people realizing it, the edge goes away, and then it eventually fails, and you got to move on to the next thing. I mean, that's why you see whatever the hot trading firm is, it changes a lot every couple of years because they get committed to one trade or a way they do things, and then it changes. So even as an individual trader, you have to be cognizant that nothing's going to work forever. So you got to keep looking at it. And also, don't get married in the micro sense. Don't get married to it and just no matter what think it's going to work. That makes you a zealot, as I call them, not a trader. So I don't know, Dan, you got anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, when we're trading, we have these, the A setup. It's my best setup. It's always paying out really nicely. This is trading. It's inevitable. It's not always going to work. We're going to have losses. And the key here is don't shift away from something because it didn't work 2 or 3 times, right? It's really important that you give it the time and you give it continuous chances, because we've learned over time that certain trades are high probability trades. We've talked a lot about on the forecast recap and other places, that idea of when the market opens up away from settlement price, the first look is there a chance for this market to return to settles? It's a great opportunity. It's something worth looking for each and every day. And last week, I know on the recap, one recap, we were sitting down and I had said we had a couple great chances in the 6 markets to return to settlement price. And we had a couple that opened up away and gave us a nice little fake out towards it and then took back off in the other direction. So you've got good probabilities. If it's a setup that has good probabilities, trade around that. Accept the losses. Continue to look for those setups because they are there for a reason. They're things that we've kind of given the slogan A setup for a reason. So that there's validity behind that. Now, obviously, you guys are making some great points here. You do have to adjust over time. When I look back to, let's just go back to when I started at Top Step, I don't know, 4.5 years ago or something, I was focusing on different trades than I'm focusing on today. You got to adjust and evolve, but that adjustment and involvement doesn't happen overnight or instantaneously. That's something that you just kind of tweak little by little. You start to recognize new things, implement small incremental changes. Don't make those drastic changes.
That's great stuff. Mick, some sage wisdom from somebody's kitchen.
little bit to add. I really like everything that you guys said, and I agree with it. Jack, I like how you brought up the business standpoint. When it comes to setups, it's not, obviously anybody who's ever spent a day in the markets knows that not every trade is going to be a winning trade. Market environment's a big thing. If you do have a strategy that works for you, a majority of the time, or a high percentage of the time, you obviously want to ride that strategy out and use it for all it's worth. But you got to be careful betting all the jewels on one specific setup. It could work for you 5 times, and then if you're over leveraged, the one time it doesn't work, you could wipe out all those profits from previous trading days or previous setups. The thing with trading setups or trading systems is if you have something that works most of the time, you're supposed to take it when those opportunities arise. One thing, I was listening to you guys talking, and I'm thinking about setups, and I think about these 5-minute bull flags. A bull flag's a formation. Anybody who's ever looked into technical analysis, they all know what a bull flag is. There's a reason people look for patterns like that, because it's a pattern that develops on a somewhat regular basis. You might see it more if you're looking at a bunch of other markets, but it can have follow through and play out. Everybody knows what a bull flag is, but you need to put stuff like that into context too. You could be looking at a 5-minute bull flag on your charts. If you go out onto a higher time frame, you might see a 60-minute bear flag or something like that. Always good to know where you're at, where the market's trading, if you're in new highs, or if you're in a channel, some consolidation. So always look at the market structure too, because you might have something that works well in a trending environment. Oh, we're making new highs. I get a little pullback. I can buy this pullback. Am I doing something like that when the overall trend is up or the overall trend is down? Put things into context for yourself. So I really think that if you have something, just to sum it up, if you've got something that works, continue using it, but always be aware that it might not work, and don't bet the house on one trade setup.
Yeah, Dan and I talked last week on the podcast about that, how you always got to be looking at the higher time frames. Make sure you know the whole story before you get in. There was one thing I wanted to touch on, which I think maybe the most applicable piece of information I can give on this topic that Mick touched on a little bit, is you have your A setup. It's what it works most of the time and stuff. Don't let that become the one you blow out big time on. I think that's something that I was guilty of a lot when I was working at the prop shop. And it was if I was looking for one of the things that was the difference between the people that were really, really, really successful traders and people like me that were okay, maybe a little better than okay, but is that they would not cannonball that A setup. I can think of trades that we'd always want to take that I would come in the morning and be so excited for this is going to be a huge day because look at this. How could it not be? And then 2 hours later, I'm sitting there catatonic on my AAA setup, which is when it's gone a couple levels through where you're at. And I think I personally, probably the majority of my blowouts came on what I perceive to be A setups because you have so much conviction of it. You let it override. You're so confident it's going to work out that you don't accept the thing that it's not, and you don't get out of it quick enough. So that's what I would encourage everyone to try as they start trading.
It's interesting that you bring this up as you're talking about that. Trading Research is typing in a kind of a question and kind of answering his own question in a sense, but I'll read it off really quick. I'm more wondering not why my strategies fail sometimes, but why I do. Occasionally not wanting or willing to take a loss happens mostly after winning streak. I get overconfident and then take riskier trades, then get in trouble and not wanting to wreck a great day, but this behavior wrecks a great day. So I think it's kind of interesting that you talk about that. You kind of have a confidence around your trade or around the strategy or around something that's worked so well. If you are overconfident and you start to leg in, trade a little higher, hey, I can take a little bit more risk in this trade because it is an A setup. You're deviating from that plan. And then that's where you do, you take the whack.
Yeah.
One thing Mick said, that's the time that you load up on it, that it's really going to fail. It just brings me back to one of my dad wisdoms. If the market's going with you, you'll never have enough on. If the market's going against you, you'll always have too many on. and talking about those well-known, technical patterns like a bull flag, bear flag, if it's really obvious, you have to remember, and Jack, I think you were talking about this too, is, if you think you're an innovator on that trade, but it's a very obvious setup, that's much less probability of it actually playing in your favor, because the more people that recognize it, the more confident they are in it, the more people in it, the less likely it is to actually play out in your favor.
I've got a couple thoughts here. Danny, you mentioned the comment from one of our viewers. I really think that people underestimate the amount of discipline it takes to be successful in this business. You've got to be, stone cold and, stick to your guns. As far as, building up confidence from, profitability in your trading, that's awesome. People go on streaks like that. You got to protect the profits. One of the more difficult things for me to see, and it's something that I used to do, was, you see a trader have, big winning day or a nice streak, and then, the following day they come in, they wipe out the previous day's profits, and or potentially more. I always tell people, take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. If you make 2,000, today, you shouldn't be risking more than half of that, if even half of that, the following day. Or if you get a nice head start during the week, you make money Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, Thursday and Friday, look for more opportunities, but you want to protect that. I mean, your job as a trader is to walk out of here up money on the week. I had one other train of thought based off something John had mentioned. Oh, I remembered it. It's kind of hard doing this live sometimes. You get the added pressure. I need to remember that. I should have been taking notes. When it comes to, since we're talking about setups, and I actually want to pivot back to something Jack had mentioned as well. A lot of ideas floating around. Jack, you mentioned A setups or AAA setups. I kind of cringe when I hear people talk about, my grade A setup or my AAA, or it's a B setup or a C setup. You shouldn't be taking risk if it's not a AAA setup or an A setup. I mean, I see too many traders taking too many trades. be selective. Your performance is going to increase. We've been talking a lot about scalping lately and how it's so difficult to be successful. I don't believe that you can really scalp and be successful over the long run. Too much risk initially. And you've got to be right too many times if you're trying to predict long and shorts throughout the day. So going back to what John was talking about, and I guess throughout this whole conversation, I was kind of thinking like these setups that you think work or do work for you most of the time. I was kind of thinking about how maybe a setup on a shorter time frame is less likely to turn out the same way maybe a setup on a higher time frame is. And kind of where my mind's at with that is if I'm trading off a 1 minute chart or a 5 minute chart, I'm looking for smaller moves in the market.
Well, there's more noise and less signal, as friend of the program Nate Silver would say in his book. So yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
More noise. And if I'm trading on a shorter time frame, looking to make 5 ticks, 6 ticks or something like that, and then whether it's a larger individual trader or some institution comes in and they go to the market with a big sell order or something like that, I'm going to be more affected if I'm looking to take a smaller amount out and looking to risk a smaller amount than I would be if I'm making a trade off of a higher time frame setup. The aggressiveness or lack thereof in buying or selling it's gonna be smoothed out a little bit on a higher time frame.
I mean, the shorter time frame you're going, the more you're playing what I'll affectionately call Q roulette. We've talked a lot about this. Is as you get down to the shortest level, you're just competing with algos, right? And it's all about Q position. There's no like real signal. It's just how fast they can correlate these variables they're looking at. And it's going to be faster than you. Before the signal even reaches your brain, that edge is already gone.
Yeah, a lot of traders are trying to jump in and out really fast in those scenarios. And I think for a lot of them, the mentality is right? Like they want to get into these trades with minimal risk. Let's just say they're risking $50, $60, $70 on that trade. And this is a conversation I have quite a bit. And I try to paint the picture. I go, but if we go back to what Mick was talking about, and you only take that AAA setup, the one that's the good one, and you're taking 2 or 3 in a day, your risk, you have a little bit more room to take on that trade. So lately I've had a conversation with a few traders about it. And we're looking at the risk that they're taking versus the number of trades that they're taking in the day. And they're taking about 30 trades in the day, and they're averaging $50 to $60 of risk in each trade that they take. Well, take that $50 or $60, multiply it times 30, and that's how much risk you're really taking in the day. If you focus on those AAAs, your higher time frame, you're looking for the longer opportunity, you can take a little bit more risk, but overall on the whole day, your risk is much less.
I have something. Could you guys make me a market real quick and humor me? What percentage of Top Step traders or traders in the program that what percent would you say are their problem is that they're too selective with their trades? Yeah, 1%,
maybe. Yeah, 0 to 1.
I mean,
I'll give you a market. I'll give you 0, 1.
In my whole 01. My entire trading career. Oh, there we go. In my entire career, I've only seen one person who their problem was that they weren't taking enough trades. It's a very rare. The overwhelming problem is over trading. And if you stick to to kind of bring this full circle, if you stick to your strategy, what's nice is this is hopefully isn't an algebra lesson, but you know how you need a certain number of equations to solve. You need as many to solve for 2 variables. You need 2 equations and so forth, right? If you just stick to your strategy, okay, that's Dan, the big trader, little math man. Bear with me. There is a point to this. I'm not just trying to be I was going to say a word that probably we shouldn't say on there. If you are really good about following your strategy and it is not working, well, then you've identified what's wrong. It's the strategy, right? If you are kind of following your strategy and kind of shooting from the hip, when things go wrong,
you don't know why.
You don't know why.
You have to be consistent to be able to pinpoint, your finger on something and correct it.
Yeah. So if you want to identify the problem, you got to have that discipline. And that's why, and Dan and I are going to record a podcast after this, which is kind of what we're talking about, is what kind of research is done and why reflection like that is so important.
Jack, going back to the market you asked us to make as far as the over trading, I would be so surprised to ever hear about someone who you're learning to trade from, or someone that's coaching you, or someone that's watching your risk, to ever say you're not active enough, you're not trading enough. Everybody will say slow it down, be more selective. I kind of correlate that as spring's upon us and it's golf season, and Jack just won a golf tournament last weekend. I think about you get if you get any coaching lessons on the golf course, there's no golf instructor that's going to tell you to swing harder at the ball. They always tell you to lighten up your swing. And I think with anybody who's coaching your trading, they're going to tell you to be more selective with it.
Mick, it's funny you bring that up, because as we've been going through this conversation, the more and more I think back to it, most of my reprimands prior to being a top step in the prop firm were, slow down, you took too many trades today. Like, or, hey, you've had a good day, don't take any more, you're done for the day. Like, that's where the reprimand would come, where like the, outside of the education of like, okay, here are setups and opportunities, like it was always cut back on what you're doing. You know, and most of my big screw ups were when I stayed later than I should have. I was looking at a bad time frame. I was doing things that I should not have been doing based off of that simple mentality of slow it down.
Yeah. And you don't have to be ambivalent. Like, that's not what you want to be. You can get in trouble. You can get reprimanded for not trying, not putting in the work, not showing up enough days. You got to be there for when the opportunities come. So it is important to put the time in, but your time trading does not have to be entering trades. Every minute of the day.
Just because you're a trader doesn't mean you have to trade.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of trading is boring, waiting for alignment with your strategy,
Capital.
waiting for that A setup to come.
And we've seen people make preservation. We've seen people make 1,700 trades in a day. 1,700 trades. Point and click.
Finger would fall off.
Oh my God. It's like, is this person trying to, what are they, like a cyborg or something? I don't get it.
I remember getting a gentle crack in the back of my head after trading some grains, and I was explaining why I was long or short a market. And I said, I was just giving it a shot. I didn't feel too strongly, but I had risk on, and I got a nice crack in the back of the head.
Yeah.
Cyborg.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Mick, how did you feel when you were saying that? Just like, I just have it on for, shits and giggles.
In the moment, years ago when I was saying that.
Yeah.
I think you should have a good explanation for, I was embarrassed, I think, because, I didn't have a good explanation. It was just kind of a stupid, decision, but you really need to be able to justify, wholeheartedly why you have this risk on. You are taking leveraged risk. You better have a darn good reason for it. And I didn't at the time, and I got cracked in the back of the head.
Yeah, everything fails, even A setups. I think that was about what we wanted to cover. So without that, Dan, you got anything for us?
Yeah, so I just want to say hello to everyone that commented. We get a couple comments. So just deeper from Forex, Joshua, and Trading Research. Thanks for commenting, everybody. My quote today comes from good old Winston Churchill. Success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. I thought that tied in well for us here today.
I think it does too. Take that advice from Winston. Maybe don't, drink 6 beers in the morning before you trade, or however he started his day. But great seeing you guys. Good to be back live. And as usual, our trading Yoda Hogue. You want to give us a sign off?
If it was Winston Churchill, it was probably more likely gin.
Yeah.
But don't take that advice. Don't drink and trade. Take this seriously. We're looking for your success. Get out there and trade well. Get some profits. Have a great day.
We'll see you next week, guys.